In this video, we're going to cover the question, what power does the board have? To start, let's clarify that in some organizations, this body goes by different names. In parliamentary law, we generally refer to it as an executive board. It is also called a board of directors. Some organizations call it a board of trustees, and in other organizations, it may go by the name executive council. Or it may be referred to by any one of many alternative names that organizations use. But no matter what name it goes by, the general purpose of this type of board is to manage the affairs of the organization to varying degrees. We often receive questions about what the board can and cannot do, generally from members who fear the board has exceeded its authority or at least plans to. So, what can a board do? Well, that depends completely on what your governing documents say. Now, keep in mind that your particular organization may have multiple governing documents. It may have a separate constitution and bylaws, or it may have a single document that is called Constitution and Bylaws, or it may have a set of bylaws with no constitution at all. In addition, it may have articles of incorporation or a corporate charter, and it may have a declaration or a set of rules from a parent body that apply to it. Plus, on top of all of this, certain types of organizations will have procedural rules in state statutes or federal code that apply. The point is that governing documents go by many different names, and there may be multiple governing documents working together. So, for simplicity, we will refer to these as simply governing documents in this video. Or we will use the general term bylaws with the understanding that your particular organization may have additional governing documents that apply. So, if an organization is to have an executive board, the executive board must be prescribed somewhere in the governing documents. If we look at the standard article headings for bylaws, we see that an article is dedicated to the executive board. And there we should find the details of the executive board. Robert's Rules of Order states, "A society has no executive board, nor can its officers act as a board, except as the bylaws may provide. And when so established, the board has only such power as is delegated to it by the bylaws, or by vote of the society's assembly, referring individual matters to it." Robert's Rules of Order also provides, "The amount of regular power delegated to an executive board under the bylaws varies considerably from one organization to another." This is why it's imperative to check the bylaws to determine exactly what power any particular board has. Now, while most of what needs to be said about a board should be found in this article of the bylaws, it is common for other articles of the bylaws to contain additional powers and responsibilities of the board. Therefore, be sure to check the bylaws thoroughly for a complete view of the board's authority and duties. So it's important to understand that the board's authority comes from the bylaws, and a board has only the power that the bylaws give it. If the bylaws don't give the board a certain power, then the board doesn't have that power. Now, there is another factor that comes into play. The assembly of the society can grant authority to the board by referring individual matters to it. So I want to pause right here and clarify the use of the term society. Different organized groups go by different names. For instance, such a group might be called the Trail Hikers Association, or the British Academy of Watchmakers, or the Canadian Society of Birdwatchers. Robert's Rules of Order uses all of these terms, and the same rules and principles apply regardless of the name of the group. But society appears with the greatest frequency throughout the pages of Robert's Rules of Order and throughout the citations referenced here. So, for consistency, we will use the term Assembly of the Society in this video. And when we say Assembly of the Society, we're referring to the body of the general membership assembled in a meeting. To understand the purpose of an executive board, it's helpful to understand the differences between the assembly of the society and the executive board. An assembly of a society is generally a larger body that meets less frequently than the board. For example, the society's assembly might meet only once a year, or it might meet 4 times a year, whereas an executive board might meet every month or even twice a month. The whole point is that the board is more agile and able to meet more frequently to tend to the business of the association. If nothing ever happened that needed attention between meetings of the assembly of the society, there would be no need for an executive board because the society's assembly could handle all of its business. But experience has shown that things do happen between annual meetings and between monthly meetings, and that creates a desire to have a more mobile body that can respond to the needs of the association. That's precisely what the executive board does. It makes decisions and takes actions on behalf of the association when the assembly of the society is not able to do so. And, of course, it does this in accordance with the bylaws of the organization. So let's take a look at a question. If the assembly of the society adopts a motion, can the board amend or rescind that motion? Yes or no? Before we answer, let's look at a practical example. Let's say the society's assembly adopts a motion that admission to the spring carnival shall be $25. Now let's say a few days or a few weeks later, some or maybe all of the board members begin to think that this price is too high. At an executive board meeting, can the board decide to change this price? Perhaps the spring carnival has always been free, and the board members fear charging an admission fee will greatly reduce attendance. Could the board, acting on behalf of the association, decide to rescind the motion? So our answer to this one is no. The board cannot rescind or amend a motion adopted by the assembly of the society. Robert's Rules of Order clearly addresses this by providing, in any event, no action of the board can alter or conflict with any decision made by the assembly of the society, and any such action of the board is null and void. Now let's take a look at another question. If a motion was lost in the assembly of the society, can the board consider that same motion? Yes or no? Let's say the motion was to purchase a new computer for the office. So unlike last time when we were talking about a motion that was adopted, this time we're talking about a motion that was considered in the assembly of the society, but when it was put to a vote, it was rejected. In this case, could the board consider the same motion and potentially adopt it? What would your answer be? Pause the video if you need more time. The correct answer is no. Robert's Rules of Order clarifies this by specifically providing, a board may never alter a decision of the society's assembly, even by a motion to rescind or amend something previously adopted, or by adoption of a proposal which has been rejected, unless expressly authorized by the superior body or by the bylaws. Let's take a look at another question. If the board took valid action, but the assembly of the society didn't like it, can the assembly amend or rescind it? Yes or no? So this is basically the reverse situation. Here we have the board properly adopting a motion within its authority. Let's say the motion is that the Christmas ball shall be held on December 15. Our question is, can the assembly of the society change that motion? For example, by amending the date. Or can the assembly of the society rescind the motion altogether? What would your answer be? Yes or no? Pause the video if you need more time. The correct answer is yes. The assembly of the society has the authority to amend or rescind a motion adopted by the board. Robert's Rules of Order provides, except in matters placed by the bylaws exclusively under the control of the board, the society's assembly can give the board instructions which it must carry out, and can rescind or amend any action of the board if it is not too late. So keep in mind that generally the Society of the Assembly can rescind or amend an action of the board just the same as it could rescind or amend its own action. But you'll notice an exception mentioned in the rule. Except in matters placed by the bylaws exclusively under the control of the board. So what does that mean? And what does that look like? Well, as an example, if the bylaws provided that the Christmas ball shall be held on a date set by the executive board, then the assembly of the society would not be able to amend or rescind a motion adopted by the board so as to change the date for the Christmas ball set by the board, since the bylaws give that authority to set the date exclusively to the executive board. Now let's look at a different scenario. Let's say the assembly of the society adopts a budget for the year. And let's say during the year the board identifies financial adjustments that need to be made. Can the executive board amend the budget without specific authorization to do so? Yes or no? What would your answer be? Pause the video if you'd like. The correct answer is no, the executive board cannot amend the budget unless it is expressly authorized to do so. Robert's Rules of Order provides the following. Thus, for example, if it is desired that the assembly adopt an annual budget, but that the board be empowered to alter it to deal with contingencies that may develop, The bylaws or the budget resolution must specifically confer this power on the board. So this is not a power that the board automatically or inherently possesses. If the bylaws or the assembly of the society itself does not authorize the board to do this, it can't do it. Now, a lot of questions concerning the power of the board arise in connection with a misunderstanding of the relationship between the assembly of the society and the board. One of these is the superior body, and one is the subordinate body. And believe it or not, many people are unclear on which is which. This causes a lot of confusion and can lead to a situation where the tail is wagging the dog. So, which would you say is which? Pause the video if you'd like more time. The correct answer is, the assembly of the society is the superior body, and the board is subordinate. That means that the assembly of the society can give the board instructions that it must carry out and directives that it must follow. So, in summary, whenever you're wondering what authority a board has, be sure to check the bylaws to get the exact answer to that question. And if someone tells you that the board has certain powers, ask him to show you where that rule is written so that you can read it for yourself. As a final note, it should be understood that whatever authority the board has belongs to the board, not to the individual board members. And this authority is exercised by the board in an official meeting. This authority is not exercised by an individual member of the board. For example, if the bylaws provide that overnight parking on office grounds shall be prohibited except as authorized by the executive board, a board member cannot say, for example, "Oh, I'm on the board. I'll authorize you to park here overnight." This would not be authorization from the executive board. Even if all of the board members were present, they could not exercise the authority of the board except through an official meeting, or through some other official mechanism that is specifically authorized by the governing documents. That covers the question, what power does the board have?